Most people assume their post-meal symptoms are about the food, but more often it's about how your stomach is functioning when you sit down to eat. So today we are talking about why meals trigger reflux and heartburn and three realistic strategies you can start using right away to calm those post-meal flares without adding more supplements or cutting out more foods. This one is going to be good. Welcome to the Stomach Solution, the podcast for all you high achievers out there who are tired of managing your reflux, heartburn, and stomach pain and are ready for a solution that lasts. I'm Jessica Washington, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and former reflux sufferer myself, so I know firsthand what it feels like to do everything right and still feel like your stomach is working against you. So, if you're ready to dig into your symptoms, hidden root causes, the ones that diet changes and supplements just won't touch, get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's uncover the solution to your stomach issues together. And as a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a replacement for medical advice or treatment. Have you ever finished a meal and thought, here we go again, because you can already feel the burning, the pressure, the burping, and the nausea starting to build? For a lot of people dealing with reflux or stomach symptoms, for a lot of people dealing with reflux or heartburn, the hardest part of the day is mealtime. Meals become something you have to brace for. You eat and then you wait to see how your stomach is going to react. And when you're already juggling a full day, taking care of your family, managing everything that needs to get done, the last thing you need is to feel like even eating has become another stressful event that you have to manage. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about why symptoms often flare after meals and give you three simple things you can start doing today to calm those post-meal flares and help your stomach handle food more comfortably. So it is not random at all that your symptoms seem to get worse after eating. There are a few very common physiological reasons why meals often trigger symptoms when your stomach isn't functioning optimally. One of the most common drivers is low or insufficient stomach acid. And we've already talked about how stomach acid is so important when it comes to resolving reflux and heartburn, and we're going to touch on it again here because it is the most critical driver of proper digestion. It helps break down food so that your small intestine can absorb the nutrients and calories from it. It signals your stomach to empty properly. It kickstarts the production of pancreatic enzymes and bile, and it helps prevent excessive gas and fermentation in your stomach. And when your stomach acid levels are too low, just an entire cascade of digestive dysfunction occurs. Your food doesn't break down efficiently, and instead of moving smoothly through the digestive process, food just sits in your stomach longer than it should. And when that happens, you get so much pressure building up, slow motility, feelings of fullness, which all increase the likelihood of reflux, burping, and that heavy, uncomfortable feeling after meals. Another major factor that plays into your symptoms after meals is the state of your nervous system when we eat. And again, we've already touched on that, but here we're just kind of tying all of those pieces together in a nice little bow so that you can see that these things all play directly into how you're feeling. So, digestion is largely controlled by the parasympathetic side of your nervous system, also referred to as a rest and digest state. But problems occur because many people eat while their body is still in a sympathetic or fight or flight state. This happens so often when you're rushing through meals, you're eating while working, you're answering emails, or you're just trying to squeeze in a quick lunch break between everything else on your plate, whether you're eating on the go, in the car, or standing in the kitchen while getting everyone else situated. All of that is keeping your body stuck in a state where it doesn't actually realize it's supposed to be digesting. And when your body is in this fight or flight mode, blood flow is directed away from your digestive system and towards things like increasing heart rate and preparing your muscles for action. So, in that stress state, stomach acid production pretty much gets shut off. Digestive enzymes are not being produced. Stomach emptying slows, and your stomach becomes more sensitive to food, even foods that normally wouldn't trigger symptoms. This means that even meals that should feel quote unquote safe can trigger symptoms when your body isn't in a state that supports digestion. Another common issue that causes symptom flares after meals is simply just eating too quickly or not chewing thoroughly. Believe it or not, digestion actually begins in your mouth. And this whole chewing process is one, the only mechanical element of digestion, and two, the only part of digestion that you actually have direct control over. And so I see so many people that I work with completely skip over chewing and the state that their body is in when they're eating and jump right to all of these fancy digestive enzymes and all of these other supplements to help their digestive process down the line. But if you're not holding yourself accountable for the role that you play in digestion, all of those other fancy, expensive supplements are not going to work when all you need to do is chew your food better. So, when food is swallowed in large pieces, aka you're not chewing well, your stomach has to work so much harder to break it all down. That increases the workload on your stomach and can create additional pressure and irritation, especially if your stomach lining is already inflamed. So, when you combine these factors, low stomach acid, a stressed nervous system, rushed eating, not chewing well, and an already irritated stomach lining, it becomes so much easier for meals to trigger symptoms like burning, burping, nausea, or reflux. But the good news is that some small changes to how you approach meals often make a very noticeable difference in how your stomach responds and how you will feel post mealtime. So, let's talk about three simple strategies that can help calm those post meal flares. Strategy number one, activate your rest and digest state before you eat. One of the most important things for healthy digestion is the state your nervous system is in when you start eating. If your body is still in a stress response, rushing, multitasking, mentally running through everything you still need to do that day, your digestive system is essentially on standby. In that state, your body produces less stomach acid, fewer digestive enzymes, and much slower motility. So, to address this, before you start eating, just sit there and take three slow, deep breaths and give yourself about 30 to 60 seconds to pause and just be before you take your first bite. And this is essential to do even if your day feels busy, even if your kids are running around and screaming around you, even if things are not perfectly calm. And I will say it is even more essential to do in the midst of all of that chaos. Because this small pause and some deep breaths signals to your nervous system that it is safe to shift into a calm rest and digest mode. And when you can do that and that switching of your nervous system actually happens, digestion kickstarts, it turns on, and your stomach can get ready to digest food, which makes the entire digestive process run so much more smoothly with way fewer symptoms. Many of my clients notice that simply starting meals in a calmer state reduces their post-meal symptoms significantly. All right, and strategy number two is to support digestion by chewing thoroughly. Again, a major driver of post-meal symptom flares is poor initial digestion. When food enters your stomach in large pieces, not being chewed, it requires so much more stomach acid and digestive effort to break down. And if your stomach acid production is already struggling, poorly chewed food can sit in your stomach longer than it should, creating pressure, gas, and all of those reflux symptoms you're experiencing after meals. Chewing thoroughly helps begin digestion in the mouth and reduces the burden on your stomach. And the guidance that I give my clients around this is to chew each bite until it's very soft, almost like baby food before swallowing. And I know this can be a drastic change from what you're currently doing. And so, another piece of advice that I usually give is if people just can't get over the hump and chew things as long as they need to get to that baby food consistency, which I know is a little off-putting as adults, you can also just take the mindset of chewing more than you normally do. And so if you kind of just take stock of how often you normally chew things and then be really intentional about just chewing more, that's going to set the stage for making improvements in this area. And you can always continue chewing more as you get used to that further chewed food. And really, this small change alone can make digestion noticeably easier and symptoms so much less intense without really adding anything else to your routine. No new supplements, no new food restrictions. All you have to do is chew. And then strategy number 3 is add in some gentle movement after meals. When food sits in the stomach too long, pressure builds up, and pressure in your stomach is one of the things that increases the likelihood of reflux, burping, burning, and all of that post-meal fullness that you're probably experiencing. One simple way to support digestion after a meal is some gentle movement. And so instead of sitting or lying down immediately after eating, try taking a 5 to 10 minute relaxed walk. This doesn't need to be a power walk. You don't need to be breaking a sweat. We're not trying to exercise here. This could just be walking around your house or walking outside with your kids or just staying lightly active instead of immediately sitting down. And this gentle movement helps to stimulate digestion, increases fluid flow, and just encourages food to move through your stomach more smoothly. And honestly, this is one of the easiest ways to support stomach motility and can make a noticeable difference in how you feel after meals. And these 3 strategies help to address those big common drivers of post-meal flares, so your nervous system stress, poor initial digestion, and sluggish stomach function. And for many of my clients, these strategies alone help them calm symptoms fairly quickly and significantly. But there is also an important mindset shift here. When you do struggle with symptoms after meals, it's very easy to assume the food itself is the problem. But like we've talked about before, more often than not, the issue is how your stomach is functioning, not what you ate. And this is why you can eat the same meal on 2 different days and have completely different experiences. When your digestion is supported, your body handles that meal just fine. And when digestion is off, that same meal suddenly feels like a problem. And talking about these post-meal symptom relief strategies reminds me of one of my most favorite clients that I worked with, Michael. Michael was an elite bike racer, and cycling had been a huge part of his life for so many years. But his reflux and heartburn had become so severe that he eventually had to stop competing. Even eating everyday meals had become stressful. His wife is a chef and she loves cooking creative, flavorful meals, and Michael used to love eating them. But his stomach had become so sensitive that he could no longer tolerate many of the dishes that she made, especially anything with acidic ingredients or dressings. After eating, his reflux would flare so badly that he started limiting himself to a very small list of foods just to avoid the burning and discomfort. And like many people dealing with reflux, he had also been prescribed a PPI to try to control his symptoms. And when we started working together, instead of just trying to manage the flares after meals, we began investigating why his stomach had become so reactive in the first place. And one of the first things we discovered was that he had an H. pylori infection, which can irritate the stomach lining and disrupt normal stomach acid production and digestion. So we worked on addressing that infection while also supporting the healing of his stomach lining. We also found that his mineral levels were not where they needed to be for optimal stomach acid production. Minerals like zinc, sodium, and potassium play a critical role in helping your stomach produce enough acid to properly break down food. Another important piece for Michael was his nervous system. As an athlete and a high performer, his body was often operating in a very activated state. So, we spent some time helping his body shift into a rest and digest mode, especially before meals, so that his stomach could actually do its job and so he could feel better after eating. Once all of those pieces started coming together, things really began to shift for him. His post-meal flares started calming down, that constant burning and irritation began to fade, and eventually he was able to cut his PPI dose in half, return to competing in his cycling races again, and something that meant a lot to him personally was that he could finally enjoy the meals his wife cooked without having horrible symptoms afterwards, including the acidic salad dressings that used to trigger symptoms almost immediately. So, Michael's story is a great example of what can happen when you stop focusing only on the food and you start addressing the deeper factors that influence how your stomach handles meals. So, if your symptoms tend to flare after meals, it's not necessarily because you ate the wrong food. More often, it's because something in the digestive process isn't working as smoothly as it should. Things like low stomach acid, nervous system stress, rushed eating, and sluggish digestion can all make meals much harder for your stomach to handle. And when you start supporting these processes, even in small, realistic ways that fit into your day, you'll likely start noticing that your stomach responds much more comfortably. So, in the next episode, we are going to talk about a connection that surprises a lot of people with reflux and heartburn, and that is how constipation and slow digestion can actually drive symptoms like burping, pressure in your stomach, and symptoms after meals. And once you're able to understand that connection, it can completely change how you approach healing your digestion. So I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning into the Stomach Solution. If you got something valuable out of today's episode, please subscribe to the show and leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. It takes about 30 seconds and makes a huge difference in helping this show reach the people who need it the most. And if you're ready to dig even deeper into what's going on with your gut, come find me on Instagram at the Gut Healing Ninja, or head to thegуthealingninja.com to get more resources and strategies to help you heal. And remember, there is a solution to your stomach issues, and we will find it together.